Hey everyone, Robert here. Thanks for joining again. I am still trying to figure out lighting this really small room. I'm not gonna lie, it's actually kicking my butt. It should be super simple, but I just can't figure it out. I'm not sure why. Anyway, moving on to what we want to talk about today. There's been a lot of emphasis lately on mirrorless cameras and how awesome they are, because they are awesome. I think, it's very tempting when you're starting out as a director, as a cinematographer, and often if we're talking low budget, ultra low budget, DIY, you're probably going to be both. So I just kind of want to talk about the differences between mirrorless and, budget cinema cameras. Cinema cameras can range anywhere from a few thousand to 100,000 for an Arri Alexa, but we're going to focus more on the lower end of that, because you're still getting amazing quality, and there's some interesting features that a cinema camera has that are either lacking in a mirrorless or just not as, I don't want to say, not as true to form about what an actual cinema camera is going to, how it's going to behave, and how it's going to really kind of introduce you to the world of cinema cameras, which I think is super important if you aspire, as I'm sure you do, to get onto bigger productions where you'd be working with, higher end systems like I mentioned, the Alexa or the Sony Venice. So let's just take a look at a couple of the cameras that I own that I've shot a lot with. First here we have is the Sony A7iv. I love this little guy. This is kind of my daily driver, if you will. I take this thing everywhere. I shoot everything with it. It's great for travel. It's great for stills. It shoots 4K video, 10-bit internal, 422 10-bit, which is beautiful, and S-Log3, which is the codec that I'm shooting right now on. Yeah, and I can't say enough good things about this camera. If there was probably one camera and I had to get rid of every other camera, this is probably the one I would keep, just because it's the most versatile. I mean, great autofocus, IBIS. Like I said, it can also work for stills. But here's another one I want to kind of show you that I'm very, very happy with, and I just can't say enough good things about this. This is the Blackmagic. I've had a lot. I basically have more or less every pocket line cinema camera they've released from the very first one on. This one is the new one, the full frame. In this form factor, it's fine. Actually not, tremendously more heavy or big than this. However, really to get use out of this camera, you're going to have to rig the heck out of it. The internal batteries on this thing are, I don't want to say a joke, but they're not very good. You're going to be swapping them out all the time. It's going to drive you crazy. So you're going to have to look for another power solution like a V-mount. You're going to have to start rigging, which again, though, that sounds like a real negative. It sounds like a pain in the ass, because it is, but also it's introducing you to professional and cinema cameras that they're going to be built. Any type of box style cinema camera, they're just basically going to be a box, and you're going to have to attach everything to it. You're going to have to attach your viewfinder, your monitors, power supply, your follow focus, your LiDAR, whatever you might be using for autofocus. But yeah, internally, it doesn't have any of the kind of, do it for you specs like the Sonys do. There's no internal in-body stabilization. What that means is every micro jitter, you're really going to feel it. It does record something called gyro data, which enables you to stabilize in post and usually works better than IBIS, but no cinema camera you're going to come across is going to have these type of features like you have in the Sony. Primarily, the lenses that you're going to be used are kind of what you call dumb lenses. Cinema glass, even the really high end, and they'll be all manual. More often than not, they're going to be prime lenses. It means they're faster. They give you a better bokeh. They give you more of that kind of cinematic quality. So, why would you choose a more difficult system like the Blackmagic when you can obviously pick up a mirrorless camera like a Sony or a Canon or a Panasonic and get wonderful results? Well, there's a couple of reasons. For one is image quality. As much of a fan as I am of S-Log3 and Sony, or Panasonic with V-Log-L or Canon, there's something about the codec that all the Blackmagics, going from the Pocket 4K, the Ursa Mini, whatever, Pocket 6K, Pocket 6K Pro, Pocket Full Frame, all the new Pixis, they all record in B-RAW, which is an amazing codec. It's introducing you to the RAW workflow, which you can adapt to record RAW out of a Sony, but if they record in ProRes for now, that's changing. But I've actually seen results of people like Panasonic. You can record RAW with an external B-RAW monitor. You can record in the same format, but you don't get exactly the same look. There's just something about the Blackmagic look, the Blackmagic feel that is, really kind of like, some people are calling it, I think it's fair to say, it's the Alexa for the everyman. This camera, I got it on sale, crazy sale. It was like $1,000 off, but this retails normally for about $2,500. And, that's not expensive for a cinema camera, far from it, but it's definitely, you know, maybe in the line of you could get a good mirrorless for that as well. So, you know, other things that I really think you should think about when considering if you're going to, you know, get into filmmaking really seriously is what's going to be a better tool for you to learn on. One of the problems that I see with mirrorless systems, with amazing autofocus, with, you know, really high second ISOs where they can virtually see in the dark. I'm talking about cameras like the FX30, the A7S3, you know, 12,800 second native ISO. It's like, you know, it's damn near night vision. One of the problems with that is that you might become too reliant on technology to fix things for you and fix everything in camera automatically, as opposed to learning something that's really crucial as lighting. You know, a camera like a Blackmagic camera is going to behave a lot like a Red or an ARRI in the regards that, you know, it's not going to be as forgiving. You really have to know what you're doing. You have to plan everything out. I think it's just everything. If you shoot, you know, you look at what the new iPhones are when they're shooting log internal now. I mean, almost anything can look really cool if you light it properly. And I think, you know, putting yourself in a situation where you kind of have to learn lighting to get full advantage of this camera, so that it's not super noisy. I mean, RAW is inherently noisy no matter what, but I just think, particularly if you're geared more towards cinematography and you want to be a cinematographer, then I think Blackmagic, you know, would be the way to go. There's definitely some advantages to a Red Komodo. Is it worth the huge upsell? I mean, I don't know, that's debatable, but you know, for, you know, around $2,500, you can get this unit here, which comes with a beautiful 5-inch display here. And the Blackmagic interface is, you know, second to none, considering the quality that you're getting when you look at the images you're getting out of this camera for just so cheap, you know, compared to where we were just a couple of years ago. Learning how to build up a rig, learning how to rig out a camera, all these are really important skills, particularly if you want to progress as a cinematographer. Even as a director, it's good to just kind of know how a cinema camera behaves, as opposed to a mirrorless, which the important thing to remember is those are photo-first cameras with video, great video capabilities, but video still as an afterthought. Their menus are packed full of a lot, whereas with the cinema camera, they're super simple. You know, they're built for one purpose and one purpose only. They're not built for stills. They're not built for doing, you know, vlogging or whatever. They're not that at all. They're built for creating cinematic content. And there's a beauty to the simplicity in that, because they do that better than anybody, as, you know, as far as like really comparing a hybrid camera, you know, a mirrorless hybrid to a cinema camera. In a lot of respects, I mean, you know, there's just still something as good as the mirrorless cameras get that just, the cinema cameras just beat them on. Referring to kind of the videos I've been making lately about ultra low budget film, you know, run and gun, do it yourself. Would I recommend a Blackmagic or any cinema camera in that scenario specifically? Probably not. As much as I love these cameras, I think that the fact that they have to be rigged out to actually be functional, properly functional, it adds a lot, you know, and your room for error is a lot smaller if you don't nail that tack sharp focus. I mean, I would take advantage of all of the great features that modern mirrorless cameras offer you. As much as I love these, but I would say this camera would be an excellent camera to learn on, to learn the art of cinematography, to learn the art of lighting. And if you have the crew for it, why not use it? I've used it on very low budget films. But you know, it's still, if you're literally doing your first, I mean, the last thing you want to worry about is having to build out a monstrosity of a rig just to get your shots. So yeah, you know, great camera, excellent, but not for everything. And I think, you know, again, every camera, everything that we do here, every tool has its use case. Kind of an interesting hybrid between, you know, your typical mirrorless camera and your cinema camera, your budget cinema camera or otherwise, is like the FX line from Sony. I'm shooting now on the FX30, which I made a video about. I love this little camera. It's a really cool kind of sweet spot in between. You know, it's not really a hybrid. It's definitely a video first camera and photo. It does shoot nice stills, but it's an afterthought. You know, these cameras have an awful lot in common with a cinema camera. Things like 180 degree shutter angle as opposed to shutter speed, which shutter speed is a photography way of managing shutter, essentially shutter angle. You set it at 180, regardless of your frame rate, it'll remain consistent throughout. You're shooting at 120 frames, you're shooting at 24 frames. You never have to mess with your shutter, you just leave it alone. Also, it has something pretty neat called Cine EI, which is, I could make a whole video about that, but essentially that's an exposure index. You'll start understanding, like, if you're going to go, because Sony makes wonderful cinema cameras as well on the higher end. If you're going to get into kind of the Sony ecosystem, that might make more sense to kind of understand exposure indexing and how Sony does that as opposed to like encoding internal RAW, which, yeah, like on the real high-end Sonys, you record internal RAW, but like for the most part, you'll be shooting an S-Log until you get up to like the Venice or something. But the thing that it has that a lot of cinema cameras have that I love is it has an internal cooling fan. I think Panasonic started to integrate those in their Mirrorless, which huge kudos to Panasonic. They make so many great cameras. The mirrorless cameras that you're using for cinematic purposes, you're going to be running around, you're going to be shooting long takes. You don't want to, in all types of different weather conditions, you don't want to be waiting for your camera to cool down so that you can roll. I actually still have my old Mammoth Red One MX, which is, make a video about that sometime too. It's basically a relic at this point, though it still produces amazing images. But we used to have to literally put ice packs on the body of that camera because it would overheat. And that was a cinema camera, but just Red hadn't, it's their first or second camera. They hadn't figured out heat management. But, I just would say just different tools for different jobs. There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. In my honest opinion, I don't think you get anything close to like an Alexa level camera, with the exception of Blackmagic. I think they're just that one company that's just, whatever their secret sauce is, there's just something about the images when we compare them, A/B test them next to great cameras that I love. There's just something more cinematic about the look, the feel, the softness of the image, the excellent rendition of skin tones. But yeah, they suck in low light. The second native ISOs, I don't recommend that. It's basically just shoot everything at 400 ISO, maybe 640. Light it. The camera loves light. The sensor loves light. But if you're willing to go through all that extra work, you might be really pleased with the image. So it's just, again, everybody's different. Everybody has their own take on things. I just wanted to kind of explain to you guys the difference between, because I'm sure if you're getting into this, you're looking at different camera systems. What is the difference between a budget, affordable cinema camera and an affordable, mirrorless camera? All right, well, I hope that was informative, guys. Next week, I'm going to continue with my how-to series as far as getting more into film budgeting, not just, trying to raise money for your movie, but first doing a script breakdown and understanding like everything in your script is going to need to have a dollar amount associated with it. So stay tuned. Come back next week. I'll see you soon. Thanks. Peace.